the Black Death. Join us as we explore the details of a cataclysmic event in the 14th century that wiped out an estimated nearly 200 million people. A time when an unseen enemy gripped the world in terror, transforming societies, economics, and altering the course of human history. It was an enemy, unseen but deadly, known as the Black Death. It was the year 1347. The thriving port city of Venice was at its zenith, bustling with activity from dawn till dusk. It was a city known as a magnet for merchants and travelers from every corner of the known world. But it was also a time when a sinister shadow was creeping toward Europe. Half a world away, in the arid depths of Central Asia, the Yersinia pestis bacterium had taken hold, leading to what would soon be known as the Black Plague. This deadly disease was transmitted through the bites of infected fleas that lived on black rats. These rats were abundant in many trade ships sailing between Asia and Europe. Unknowingly, it found its path to Europe via the busiest trade route between East and West, the Silk Road. As the plague began to ravage the Far East, the Mongols, who were controlling most of the trade routes, unwittingly became the first carriers of the disease. Legend says that some of the Mongol soldiers, who were known for their fierce warfare and training, actually developed an immunity to the Black Plague and passed on this genetic resistance to their descendants. Then came the black rats, who found homes in the Mongol caravans, traveling alongside their human hosts. The fleas bit the rats, the bacterium multiplied within the fleas bit humans, and so the transmission cycle began. The traders, not realizing the severity of what they were dealing with, continued their journeys. Among them, 12 Genoese galleys set to sail from the port city of Kaffa, heading toward home. These galleys were the infamous plague ships, unknowingly infested with plague-carrying rats. They docked at numerous ports, unknowingly leaving behind a deadly souvenir at each stop. One of their stops was Venice, and of course, the black rats disembarked from the ship, disappearing into the city. Within days, the first victims began to appear, their bodies covered in agonizing buboes. The sickness spread like wildfire, soon taking hold of the entire city. The once thriving city became a ghost town overnight, with deserted streets, closed doors, and eerie silence. The plague doctors, in their haunting beaked masks, became the only visible residents traversing the city's maze-like streets and alleyways. By the time they realized the source of the plague, the Genoese ships, it was too late. The deadly shadow had already spread to other parts of Europe via the complex network of trade routes. The Black Death, as it came to be known, marked the beginning of one of the deadliest pandemics in human history, decimating approximately 1/3 of Europe's population. This is the Dark History Project. Now, let's get started. The Black Death, also known as the bubonic plague, was a devastating pandemic that struck Europe and beyond in the 14th century, leaving an indelible mark on civilization for centuries to come. The Black Death's origins are still debated to this day, but its impact was undeniable. Sweeping across continents, the disease manifested in 3 terrifying forms: bubonic, pneumonic, and septismic. Historians and epidemiologists have tirelessly researched the origins of the Black Death. They explore the roots and timelines through which the disease may have spread to Europe and beyond. Advancements in genetic analysis have shed new light on the role of Yersinia pestis, the bacterium responsible for bubonic plague. It is now believed that the origins of the Black Death can be traced back to Central Asia. Some researchers propose that Yersinia pestis is found in rodents, particularly black rats and their fleas. Others suggest that multiple pathogens, such as anthrax or other viruses, may have also contributed to the pandemic. The debate continues as scientists examine historical evidence and modern genetic data. Microbiologists have played a crucial role in unraveling the origins of the Black Death. Recent scientific findings have identified Yersinia pestis in human remains dating back to the time of the pandemic. In 2011, through DNA analysis, scientists from Germany, Canada, and the United States were able to reconstruct the genomes of ancient strains of the bacterium. Beyond the biological aspects, environmental and social factors played a significant role in the spread of the Black Death. The 14th century witnessed significant climate change, including colder and wetter conditions. These meteorological shifts influenced the ecology, affecting both rodent populations and human behavior, such as urban decline, economic changes, social mobility, and cultural impacts. Additionally, overcrowded urban centers with limited hygiene practices provided the perfect breeding ground for the disease. As the disease gained a foothold in Europe, it moved rapidly inland, affecting towns and cities with unprecedented speed. The lack of knowledge about contagious diseases and the invisible nature of the pathogen made it nearly impossible for people to grasp the scale of the impending catastrophe. The symptoms were terrifying. The disease first presented itself with subtle symptoms. Infected individuals usually experienced a sudden onset of chills and fevers, coupled with weakness and fatigue. They'd suffer headaches, dizziness, and muscle aches, which were often accompanied by a feeling of unease and malaise. However, it was the appearance of painful, swollen lymph nodes known as buboes that was the telltale sign of the disease. These buboes were typically located in the neck, armpit, or groin, and could grow as large as an apple. As the disease progressed, symptoms became more severe and horrifying. Infected individuals often experienced extreme pain as their skin turned black and necrotic due to internal bleeding, lending the disease its name. This was a symptom of septicemic plague, a variant of the disease that almost always ended in death within a day. Pneumonic plague, another variant, affected the lungs, leading to severe respiratory issues. Infected people suffered from a violent cough, chest pains, and difficulty in breathing. They also coughed up blood, a result of the infection causing severe damage to lung tissue. Despite the best efforts of medieval medicine, the Black Plague was often fatal. Complications such as septic shock, respiratory failure, and organ failure led to death. Most people infected with the disease died within a week of contracting it, leading to the Black Plague's grim reputation as one of the deadliest pandemics in human history, with a mortality rate of 30 to 60%. During the Black Death, people believed that the disease was highly contagious and spread through direct contact with an infected individual or their belongings. They observed the rapid and devastating spread of the disease within communities and wrongly associated with personal interactions. Fear of contagion led to the isolation and abandonment of the sick, leaving them to suffer alone. Additionally, the healthy avoided any close contact with those suspected of being infected, further contributing to the social and emotional isolation. During the Black Death, doctors' outfits took a distinctive appearance as they attempted to protect themselves from the deadly disease. To shield against potential contagion, physicians donned a protective suit known as a plague doctor outfit. This ensemble typically featured a long, waxed leather or fabric cloak covering them from head to toe. The cloak had a wide-brimmed hat resembling a bird's beak, which served as a form of early respiratory protection. The beak was often filled with aromatic substances such as herbs or flowers, believed to ward off miasma or bad air. Additionally, the outfit included gloves and boots, further reducing direct contact with infected patients or contaminating surfaces. While the plague doctor outfits provided some level of protection, they were insufficient to prevent transmission effectively, as the true cause of the disease and its mode of transmission were not yet understood. The disease's lethality was unparalleled, as mortality rates reached horrifying levels, killed up to 50% of some population centers. Entire families succumbed to the plague, leaving towns and villages desolate. The sense of hopelessness was pervasive. In their desperation, many turned to desperate measures, such as a group called the Flagellants, who whipped themselves in public as a form of penance, since many thought this was a punishment from God. Many moved to the countryside, leaving cities deserted, while others blamed the plague on ethnic groups or other religions. Others were seeking cures and explanations in superstitions and folk remedies. Physicians at the time were powerless against this unseen enemy, often resorting to archaic treatments like bloodletting and herbal concoctions. The church played a significant role during the dark period, attempting to provide spiritual guidance and comfort to the afflicted. The impact of the Black Death on society was nothing short of catastrophic, reshaping the very fabric of medieval life and leaving a lasting mark on generations to come. One of the most immediate and devastating effects was the staggering mortality rate. Estimates suggest that the pandemic claimed the lives of at least 75 to 200 million people, with some regions experiencing death tolls as high as 90% of their population. This immense loss of life resulted in labor shortages and disrupted economic activities, leading to significant consequences for the social and economic structures of the time. Just to get an idea, the world at that time was estimated to have had 350 to 400 million people. Now, if we look at the population trend over time, during the 1400s, the population stayed flat. When compared to other centuries, there was always growth. Moreover, the sudden decline in population caused many rural areas to be abandoned or left sparsely inhabited. Entire villages vanished and fields went untended, leading to a contraction of agricultural production. As a result, food shortages and increased demand led to soaring prices, exacerbating the hardships faced by those who survived the initial wave of the Black Death. In urban centers, the situation was equally dire. With large populations packed into cramped living conditions, the disease spread rapidly, leading to massive casualties. Entire industries collapsed, and commercial activities ground to a halt. The devastating psychological impact cannot be understated. The constant fear of the unknown and the omnipresent threat of death plagued the minds of those who witnessed the Black Death's wrath. The fear of contagion led to the isolation and abandonment of the sick, further deepening the sense of helplessness and despair. The church played a significant role during this period, attempting to provide spiritual guidance and comfort to the afflicted. Yet, even religious institutions struggled to make a sense of the suffering and death that surrounded them. During this period, the church was central to European society. Initially, it provided spiritual guidance, interpreting the plague as God's punishment for humanity's sin. The clergy cared for the sick, often becoming infected themselves. As the death toll rose, faith in the church waned, inciting social unrest and skepticism towards religious authorities. Heretical movements grew, questioning the established doctrine. Simultaneously, the church was instrumental in recording the event, providing key historical accounts of the plague. As the Black Death waned, the survivors faced the monumental task of rebuilding their shattered societies. The trauma of the pandemic left an indelible mark on culture and art, reflected in the macabre themes and morbid imagery prevalent in medieval literature and artwork. The Black Death also had profound consequences on the environment, which were closely tied to its devastating impact on human populations. As a result, vast areas of farmland went uncultivated, leading to a reduction in agricultural production and eventually famine. The decline in human activities and land cultivation had unexpected effects on nature. Forests began to reclaim abandoned farmlands, and wildlife populations experienced a resurgence due to the absence of human interference. Some species that were once endangered found new opportunities to thrive in these disturbed ecosystems. The abandonment of urban centers also had implications for wildlife. Previously, rats and other rodents had thrived in human settlements, but as the population declined, their numbers dwindled as well. The Black Death spurred significant advancements in medical knowledge and the study of infectious diseases. During and after the pandemic, physicians and scholars began to observe patterns of transmission and symptoms, leading to a greater understanding of the disease's nature. These early observations laid the groundwork for the field of epidemiology, the study of how diseases spread and affect populations. In response to the outbreak, quarantine measures were implemented in some places to isolate and contain the disease. Although the understanding of the disease's transmission was limited at the time, the implementation of quarantine measures showed the importance of isolating the sick to prevent further spread. The pandemic also led to an increased demand for medical professionals, especially those who could offer remedies and care to the afflicted. As the death toll rose, the scarcity of medical practitioners prompted the rise of unqualified healers, often leading to the promotion of ineffective treatments and superstitions. The devastation of the Black Death also created a demand of skilled laborers, which led to an increase in the mobility of workers. The movement of laborers facilitated the exchange of knowledge and medical practices between regions, contributing to the dissemination of medical knowledge and new treatment methods. The scarcity of labor meant that surviving peasants and workers had newfound bargaining power. With fewer individuals to perform essential tasks, those who remained could demand higher wages and better working conditions, kind of what we saw with the COVID pandemic in 2020. This shift weakened the feudal system, which was heavily dependent on a hierarchical labor force. The redistribution of wealth and power also contributed to the rise of a burgeoning middle class, further transforming the social landscape. In the centuries following the Black Death, the knowledge gained from this catastrophic event continued to influence medical practices. As the study of infectious diseases advanced, it became evident that the bubonic plague was only one of several infectious diseases affecting humanity. This understanding eventually led to the development of vaccines and improved public health measures, which have played a crucial role in preventing and controlling future pandemics today. And of course, there were conspiracy theories even back then. One was that a religious group was poisoning wells across Europe with the plague. Another that this was divine punishment, while others believed the plague was a result of an adverse alignment of the planets. Another theory was that the plague was a result of biological warfare from the Mongols. Even today, there are theories online about how the Black Plague was a result of extraterrestrial involvement, and even that this happened because someone opened the Ark of the Covenant. The Black Death stands as a pivotal event in the history of medicine and science, demonstrating both the devastating consequences of infectious diseases and the resilience of human efforts to understand and combat them. The lessons learned from this tragic pandemic continue to inform our response to global health challenges, underscoring the importance of scientific progress, preparedness, and cooperation in the face of emerging diseases. Thank you for being with us for this episode of the Dark History Project. Hopefully, we inspired some of you to look further into these characters and stories. Please help us out by sharing, subscribing, or liking this episode. If the platform you are listening to allows for comment, please let us know what you think. Feel free to discuss this topic or what topics you'd like for us to cover in the future. We hope you enjoyed it. And our next episode will come out soon, where we'll talk about the history of exorcisms. See you then.